This lesson is on factoring difference of two squares. Now, it's important to recognize when you have a difference of two squares. In order to have a difference of two squares, you've got to have two terms with a minus sign in the middle. That's important. Minus sign. Your coefficients and your constants must be perfect squares. Remember, perfect square is a number times itself. And your exponents have to be even. They could be a 2, 4, 6, whatever, as long as they're even. Now, when we're factoring a difference of two squares, whatever the x's are, whatever the exponent is, we're going to split it in half and put each of those in the parentheses. Then we're going to take the square root of the coefficients and the constants. What number times itself equals that number. So taking the square root. I'm going to put those in the parentheses. Now, when you factor it, you're going to get a binomial times a binomial. One of the binomials will have a plus sign. One will have a minus sign. The two terms will be exactly the same. All right. So the parentheses are going to look the same, just one's got a minus and one's got a positive. Now, this is what it looks like. If you've got two things that are squared, when you factor it, it's going to look like this. Notice both parentheses have the A and the B. It's just one's got a minus and one's got a plus sign. All right, so let's start with this problem. Now, I know it's a difference of two squares because it's got a minus sign in the middle. It's got an even exponent, and the number times itself that equals 1 is 1 times 1. So when we factor this, draw my two sets of parentheses, I've got a minus sign and a plus sign. Alright, since it's an x squared, I'm going to split that apart and put an x in both parentheses. Now for the 1, what number times itself equals 1? Well, the only thing that works is a 1, so we're going to put a 1 and a 1. Let's say I got x squared minus 81. So again, I know it's a difference of two squares. The 81 is 9 times 9, and x squared is x and x. So we're going to have a minus in one and a plus in the other. Now it doesn't matter if the minus goes first or the plus goes first. That doesn't matter. It's just one's a minus and one's a plus. So I split the x's apart, put an x in each parentheses. The number times itself that equals 81 is 9, so we're going to have a 9 in both parentheses. And that's all I can do. Let's say I had 16x squared minus 49. Now this time, there's a number in front of the x squared, which doesn't change anything. I've just got to find what multiplies by itself to equal 16. So we'll put my plus or minus sign in the middle. Okay, so starting with the 16, the number times itself that equals 16 is 4. So 4 in both parentheses. Break the x's apart. Then the number times itself that equals 49 is a 7 and a 7. So that's all I can do. Let's say I had 100 minus 25x squared. Whoops, let's change that. Let's make that 9x squared. Alright. Now you want to leave the terms in the parentheses in the exact same order that you start with, so the constant needs to go first and the x needs to be at the end of the parentheses. But let's just break it apart. One's a minus and one's a plus. Start with the 100. That's 10 times 10. Now the 9 is 3 times 3. And the x is x and x. Here's one that's got two variables, x squared minus y squared. So, I'm going to split the x's apart. I'm going to have an x and an x at the beginning. And the y squared, we're going to put a y and a y. Now, it doesn't have to be an x squared. I could have maybe x to the 8th minus 9. That's still a difference of 2 squares. I split the x's apart, put the same number in these parentheses, so it'll be 4 and 4. And then the square root of 9 is 3 and 3. Okay. Now, there are going to be times where you can factor a difference of 2 squares, and your answer will also have a difference of 2 squares. So I want to do some of those. So if your exponent is greater than 2, chances are, well, not chances are, it is possible you could have a difference of 2 squares in your answer and have to factor it again. But I know this one is a difference of 2 squares. So I'm going to break it apart. I'm going to put an x squared in both parentheses. Now 81 is 9 times 9. Okay, so I have this. We need to get in the habit of checking the binomial with the minus sign to see if it could possibly be another difference of 2 squares. So this one is definitely a difference of 2 squares. It's got the x squared, it's got a minus, and I can take the square root of 9, which is 3 times 3. So we can break this one apart one more time. X minus 3, x plus 3. Now, the reason I can't break the other one apart is because of that plus sign in the middle. If you've got a plus sign, that's not a difference of 2 squares. Difference means minus. So the only thing I can do is just bring that term down, or bring that parentheses down. This is the final answer. I was able to do it twice. Here's another one that you can do a couple of times. Here's a good one, x to the 8th minus 1. Well, this is a difference of 2 squares, so we can definitely factor it. It's going to be x to the 4th minus 1, x to the 4th plus 1. Now again, let's check the one with the minus to see if it's a difference of 2 squares. And it is, x to the 4th minus 1. So we can break this one down one more time. We'll get x squared minus 1, x squared plus 1. I can't break down this one because of the plus sign. We'll bring it down. Now look, again, this one with the minus sign is another difference of 2 squares. So we can break this one apart one more time. Now I can't do anything with the x squared plus 1, just bring it down. I can't do anything with the x to the 4th plus 1, just bring it down. So this one I was able to do several times. So it is possible to have a difference of 2 squares more than once in the same problem. We just got to make sure that you pay attention to the minus signs between 2 terms. Now, let me talk about things that are not difference of 2 squares. This problem is not a difference of 2 squares. Now, the reason it's not, most people look at this one and say, hey, 36 is 6 times 6, 25 is 5 times 5, and it's got an even x on it, so I can factor it. Well, you need to get used to looking at the sign in the middle. This plus sign tells me I can't factor it because it's a difference of 2 squares. There's no plus between 2 squares. So if you can't factor it, that's called prime. But you need to pay attention to make sure there's a minus sign in the middle. There's another one that some people might think would be a difference of 2 squares. Let's say I have 4x squared minus, so I don't know, let's do 7. Now, some people, they'll see the minus, hey, that's good. They'll see the x squared, that's good. And they'll see the 4, and they'll say, oh, that's 2 times 2, so I can factor this one. Well, this one is not a difference of 2 squares because of the 7. There is no number times itself that equals 7, so this would not be a difference of 2 squares. So again, this answer would be prime. So you've got to look for the minus sign in the difference of 2 squares. Make sure it's got a minus sign.